Fabulous. Right, I'd like to turn this over to the audience now. We have 15, 20 minutes left, something like that. I'm sure we have lots of questions, comments. If you make a comment, please do also ask a question. That's that's better than standing up and holding forth.
The question can't be, can I just make a comment?
And the question can't be, can I make a comment? So we have a microphone. Do we have a sea of hands or people who would like? We have one over here.
Ian Jamie.
Let's start with
the gentleman over there with the stripy tie.
Jamie,
They
yes.
all say that, don't they?
Hi, Ian Jamie, Managing Director of Stager Clear Packaging. We make cartons out to recycle PET to the M&S specification. I got just 3 comments really. I'm a governor of a school in Coventry, an academy, and there's precious little done in schools these days to teach the kids about the environment. And I often thought if you teach kids about their looking after themselves, their health, you might as well teach them about other things like the environment as well. So I think you'd agree with me, that's really important starting point, if we can get people from an early age to appreciate our environment. The second point I've got, and it's a bit of a question really, if we kind of redesigned our PRN system, that's the PERN system, to discourage exports of our waste, wouldn't that help this country to grow its own industry, to recycle more and recycle better, and then industries to grow up to use the recycler? So that's my second question. Third point is I think government should be far more prescriptive about what plastics we should be using. Okay, thank you.
Wow.
I'll answer the first one. Hands up, anybody who's aware of Wastebusters?
I know that one.
Good, okay. Make it your ambition tonight to go online and look at Wastebusters. Probably the best education package there is for this whole subject. They've done about 6 million children now. They could well use. They work with RAP, they work with Recoup, they work with local government as well. It's a really, really good program. So that's my bit.
And adding to that, there's a really strong Eco Schools program that you can have a look at as well. That's an excellent program that's got lots of these principles in mind.
And on repatriating recycling in the UK, that needs the system to be designed so that it encourages that, but it also needs people who are making packaging demanding to recycle it back to put into their packaging. It needs the system to be joined up.
Yeah, can I
And
just...
you're an exemplar of that.
Actually, Ian, do you want to please say?
Just one from this is typical. Sorry. Typical Iceland thinking. We thought that when they stopped the China ban that day, we thought that they should have brought it all back in containers and put it in Whitehall. And they would have done something about it. That's what we thought. We should have dumped it in Whitehall.
Good heavens.
And said, sort that out.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Good grief. Now, look, just another point on that, and I know I'm not supposed to do any of the answering, but on the export part of it, I think it is a really important point that we shouldn't be favouring, or exports shouldn't get a benefit over the typical, within the UK, PRN. We've also got to think about some of that export goes into the other parts of Europe, which we would say is acceptable. One of the things I think we should be campaigning for as an industry is a code of conduct regarding the countries where our bales are exported to ensure that there is no misuse of labour conditions are absolutely as we would expect, and that no children, for instance, are involved. And that, I genuinely think, is something that we can sign up to, the NGOs can equally sign up to. To me, that is a no-brainer.
And for those of you who have been involved with it, but that is exactly what the Global Plastics Protocol is all about with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, working towards a standard code of practice across the globe.
Should adopt it now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shall I comment on the third point? Don't like what's one hanging, but government being prescriptive on which plastics can and can't be used. I think in a very limited and targeted way, yes, I think that is okay. I think there are some materials that cause so many issues at end of life and with reprocessing that it is worthy of a debate. I wouldn't like to see it go too far because it potentially stifles a lot of innovation. I would rather it was focused on outcomes that were required. So a circular material that is recycled and does have recycled content in it, and therefore potentially that's giving you a better vehicle to support innovation than just an outright ban on something.
And that should be driven by a fiscal system, not a ban.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a question down here. There's a young lady sitting down, so I don't know if you can see her. Here we go. Please do stand up.
She's happy to stand up, I think.
Hi, just a comment. So you keep talking about pressure of, you keep pressuring other people like retailers, consumers, and government of changing behavior for environmental issues. So, but what are your plans as a companies for changing maybe your behavior issues? Because you keep talking about staying with plastic, not illuminating it like Iceland will do. So what are your plans? What are your behavioral issues?
Oh, you can. The major thing is that we have got now, with the world in which we live, particularly in the developed world, we have a very integrated, just-in-time supply chain system. And as Ian will find, and I'm sure he'll admit, moving that whole supply chain system is a very ponderous, difficult animal. You can move something very, very fast and actually give yourself all sorts of unintended consequences around. I think if you look at some of the dot-com businesses, they have found this. They've built one-size-fits-all, and it's now seen to be consuming vast amounts of material that they shouldn't use. So they have to go back and look at that. I think what Ian and Iceland have done is fantastic. It's held our feet to the fire. It's made us all go back and look at what we're doing really critically and actually ask questions, or really critical questions that we should have perhaps asked on a much more frequent basis. We are all doing something, but maybe not at the speed that Iceland are proposing to do it.
We have made huge changes in the packaging we use to improve the recyclability. We've taken complexity out, we're taking colour out. We've moved a long way from where we were on recyclability to where we are now. We've moved from 46% of our lines, as I said earlier, to 71% of our lines easy to recycle. It's no mean feat, and in doing that, we've also talked to other retailers through industry bodies to help them to get to the same level of thinking, and it has been very, very positive, hasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we really, really have to avoid unintended consequences. Food waste is the big one. I know Ian's mentioned it. I'm interested to see that. Just, can't say any more than that, really.
And I think I mentioned in the opening remarks some of the things that we think are really important and we are working and innovating on. So our bottles are lighter than they've ever been. Our bottles are about half the weight. Well, this particular one is about half the weight of what it was when it was launched in the 90s. It is more recyclable, the labels, the glues, it's containing recycled content. We are buying back the material to use to get to 50% recycled content. We're using the power of our brands to communicate. So I think quite often in these kinds of sessions we do talk about the bits that we can collaborate on, and the bits that we can collaborate on are things like the policy areas and where we need collaboration within the industry, but also within local and national government. But I think every company obviously needs to be able to explain their packaging footprint. Where are the biggest impacts that they have, and what are they doing to address them?
And those changes that Coca-Cola have made have influenced other people in the industry to make similar changes. So we're all on a very similar page as retailers on the recyclability of our packaging.
If I could ask a...
Plastic, the bottles, that is.
Sorry. Thank you. If I could ask a follow-up question, one of the books that I read to my 4.5-year-old boy has a wonderful line which explains to very small children about how life is a great balancing act, and it puts me in mind of that. So my question is, in light of the last question, what are the compromises that we're going to have to make and accept in order to achieve the goals that Ian, you're talking about, and the other wider goals that may or may not involve removing plastics from our packaging?
Can I answer with the question, which compromises are we allowed to make? Are we allowed to increase food waste? Because there's a court-ordered commitment target to reduce food waste. Are we allowed to increase food waste in our supply chains and in the customers' homes? I don't think we are.
I wonder if Nick, if I could look at you and say, it was a talking point at a certain point in the past around the quality and the clearness of recycler coming into Coca-Cola bottles, and is that something that is that either solved or something that marketing teams will accept a certain level of less clear recycler for the sake of argument?
Okay, so I'll answer your first question first and your second question
okay.
second. So I think there are some compromises that you absolutely can't make. Food safety, hygiene, I think they are no-go areas. I think there are a lot of things to play for in other areas. I think in terms of appearance, the example you use, actually, I think we've now got to a stage where we're confident that we can do it without altering the appearance. But there are there might be other pack formats or other materials where the appearance might be one. I think a compromise from industry is to contribute more to the end-of-life costs of the packaging that it puts on the market through reform of the producer responsibility scheme. So I think there is a compromise there in contributing more. I think when you get to consumers and lifestyles, it's a slightly different question. Are we going to ask people to compromise and do different things at the end of life? That's what a deposit scheme is. It is asking people to make a different, to carry out a different behaviour when they finish using a packaging and giving that a financial incentive. So I think there are compromises in several places along the chain. I think some are absolutely no-goes, some can be minimised, and others are really interesting debates for where we want to go with convenience and on the go. I think that is a really big area where I'm not sure things will look the same in 10 years as they do now.
The compromise that has been made is that Coca-Cola bottles now look a bit grey, but people accept that now because that's what the recycled content is. So we have to continue to move that design view forward with the customer.
I'm lucky. I look after the cycle of launching a product from start to finish. So when I'm looking at developing a product with the buyers, I cover it right at the start, right to the end. So the product life cycle analysis of that product, we take a lot of risks. We take a lot of risks. We would never compromise food safety, never. But we'll take a lot of risks. We will get a lot of things wrong. We will make some mistakes, but we will recover quickly from them. That's what we're good at. So you have to make mistakes sometimes to go ahead. This plastic, the pledge that we've made, we won't get everything right in it. We will not. There'll be something that we'll compromise on that the customer, and I come back to the customer every time, they pay my wages, the customer will not like. They might not like my paper trays for ready meals. I might have to come up with something really, really quickly. I may change soup from a plastic pot to a board pot, and they might not like it. There's a lot of things I will do which will not work first time. That is Iceland, that is retail, that is coming out with ideas, that is failure, recovering quickly, getting on to the next. We'll never, ever risk food and that, and safety in that. But you've got to make mistakes. How the hell do you learn if you don't?
I think we've got... Oh, are we doing...
I don't know if Kevin wants to say something on this.
Very much along the same lines. I think there is also the point that we have got, as customers, all of us have got very used to having everything all the time. And actually some of the issues around plastic packaging can be solved by having good seasonality rather than having to ship things long distances. Would we go back to that and accept seasonality? I don't know. But again, that's a compromise the customer would have to work with the retailer on.
I think we have time for two more questions, and I know we've had signals. One is the lady with the camel coat, as they say on Question Time, at the back. And there's a gentleman just at the back there who's just signalled as well. So you first. Might be able to do the two together.
Thank you. So far you've talked a lot about primary packaging and around consumer and customer behaviour. I was just wondering if you could share a little bit around where you've been innovating in terms of secondary and tertiary packaging for transportation, etc.
Was your question different from that? Right, fine. So we just do
Okay,
this.
well, very simple from us. We've been using BOC crates for about 20, 30 years, I think, which means that we don't take secondary packaging into stores. So
You
We
may as well
use-
go along the line. I mean, primary, secondary, whoever wants this one.
We use returnable crates for a lot of fresh produce. We also use cardboard and shrink wrap, and we recycle the cardboard and shrink wrap. There's been innovation on shelf-ready packaging, but that's mostly in cardboard.
Not a lot to add, to be honest. Again, there's some innovation coming about different multi-pack formats that perhaps are glues rather than films and boards. Those are things that we're looking at as well.
Actually, for you, Ian. as
Coming
well.
back to the whole chain, it's massive. All that's massive. We have to do it as part of our job. It's a bit like online as well. 30% of our sales are online. We're still sending them carrier bags. That cannot be right. We could do crates differently, perhaps out of corrugated. There's a lot of things that we're still in the middle of doing that we've got to think about. If you didn't know, and it really worked for us. In fact, one of our suppliers is here. We started to put clear plastic APET into all our stores for all our cooked meats and our cheeses, and it really worked. It was brilliant. It absolutely, sales rose because we did it. I'm now taking those out because they're part of our non-plastic policy. So another compromise, did something that went the right way because of our policy. I'm going another way. Will that work? Who knows?
And thank you. And the gentleman at the back, you've got the microphone? A microphone.
Just in the conversation you folks have had so far, you've talked about a lot about sort of recycling and all of that. But when decompostability came up, it was something you immediately almost shut down. If that's part of one of the potential solutions, understanding that it's probably going to take as much education and effort to get through as all the other bits you do, why is it not part of the plans?
Can I answer that one?
Please. Ian.
Compostable packaging comes in two broad categories. One is EN 13432 certified only, and one is home compostable certified. Taking the first part, EN 13432 certified has to go into a food waste collection. The food waste collections in the UK do not allow it. The only things that are in food waste collections in the UK are caddy liners, nothing else. So until there's a change in the collection facilities, it's closed down. Moving on to the home compostable, at least 50% of the population in the UK lives in cities with no access to home composting. The last estimate I saw on people home composting goes back to before the year 2000, and that was that 40% of households with gardens get involved in home composting. But that doesn't mean to say they get involved in home composting the packaging. So we're talking about a small number of people.
Your attention, please. Day one of the show is now complete. Please feel free to join us for a drink on the networking bar. Otherwise, we hope you have a safe journey home. And
Thanks,
we look
Lorna.
forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we applaud,
Can I just finish that one? We're talking then about a very small number of people who can take advantage of compostable packaging. So we'd much rather make it recyclable currently, but when the solution on collection is there, let's go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, one very quick comment. Yes.
From the man from OPC. Do you want to shout it? Go on, quick,
No,
quick.
The mic's on the way.
Oh, is it? All right, there we go.
Mr. Mike is on the way.
No, we're going to have to end.
Yeah, the main issue with compostable is two things. One, that you're taking a good resource and you're throwing it away, never to be used again. So that really is going against all the efforts about the circular economy. You're taking something and you're chucking it away. And the other thing is that it can contaminate the rest of the recycled train. And the danger of that happening is not insignificant. So I think the idea of having something that's compostable, I agree with everything you've said about the number of people who would be able to compost things, but it just really shouldn't be part of our objective. That we should be looking to recycle everything we can. So that really should be the focus of what, as a single message coming from the industry to the consumers.
No, because we still got two more to answer, and then we'll have to end it. Sorry, do you want to add anything to the compostable debate?
It's exactly the same. It's the difficulty is we don't have a system for it. And it goes back to sustainable design principles. If you could design it for circularity, do it. And if there is a composting system, all well and good. And it's notable that the 2012 Olympics, which is always cited as where it worked really well, is because every cup was left at the gate as people left. So it was able to be controlled.
Closed
and taken
system.
off. Yeah,
That wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, now, since we've had the big announcement, I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there. Please do grab the guys afterwards and ask your question. Now, I'm going to hand over just for a couple of summing up comments from Martin.
Yeah. Just to say, first of all, I think we've got to say massive thanks to these 4 brilliant people. I will cut this down for once to the bare minimum. I think what this shows is that, A, this is a very important debate, there's no question about it, but that the packaging supply chain and this whole debate, this issue, we're taking it very seriously. There can be no question about that. We are a responsible industry. You are part of being in a responsible industry, and that we're all very motivated about this. We are going through a process of reinvention, and it's something we have to do ourselves now. What we don't want to see, I know it was alluded to, is government intervention in this where it becomes prescriptive. If that happens, it's going to be very, very high-handed. There's not going to be much subtlety about it, and it may have some unintended consequences. It may well do. Why? Because the government know a bit about packaging, but they are not experts as you are, and that is going to be a big difference. So as I say, I do believe we have to do it now. Packaging does serve an incredibly important role. Most importantly, post-Brexit, it will be helping to feed over 60 million people. This is critical. We cannot and we don't, because we're so used to dealing in packaging, we often forget the fundamentals of why packaging is so utterly important to our society. So every change, every measure, as has been demonstrated by all 4 of them, is measured. It isn't knee-jerk, it is considered. So if that was a mantra, I would urge you to adopt that as well, not to produce some sort of knee-jerk reaction without evidence, and to do what is right for your business. If we do that, we are going to achieve. I think we have absolutely got the brains to deal with this issue. That is there in abundance, and to play our full role in achieving the goals of the circular economy package. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks to all of them. A final round of applause.